machine something.
Mm-hmm.
And Steve, the brothers, the 10 children that Daniel and Electa had, Stephen was the one who was the father of Cassius, who went out to Battle Creek, Michigan. Even Stephen did. Cassius was the grandfather, father or grandfather of the ones who started the Upton machine.
Mm-hmm.
It was that. And
Because this article I found last night was talking about Louis, Frederick, and Emery Upton.
yeah.
Oh, which Emery is that?
Oh, well, it was, these were Cassius's
Kids?
children. And the Stephen that Joe has talked to on the telephone, he found him on the internet,
Mm-hmm.
and he's the present one.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's the one who said, well, Cassius was my grandfather, and he was the brother of Henry and Emery
Oh, okay.
from Batavia.
Mm-hmm.
So, look, stops at the 7th generation. It doesn't go into, and the last one, Henry, Emery's grandfather, just had 3 children at that time, and Aunt Lucy was the 3rd child, and it doesn't go on to the 10 children that they had. So
someone needs to do an addendum to the book.
Yeah.
I need to write an addendum.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting when I did a Google search last night on Upton machinery. One of the things that kept coming up was this one was on a Russian website.
Really?
The history of Whirlpool. The whole thing was in Russian and it had this picture.
How funny! My gosh.
That's there.
My gosh.
There's your U.S. Grant Hotel 1941
Oh.
postcard that was on eBay.
Oh, great.
Figured that would
Yeah.
be appropriate. So we were back to talking about the war and
Well, that all about that's all wrong because 1938, it was earlier than that. I don't know.
yeah, I wasn't sure what year to
more
start
like
my
a
searches.
34.
Okay, let me
It
make
was
a note.
Like
I'll
a
do is
34 or something.
search for 1934 DeSoto.
It was a gorgeous car, very block kind of,
Blocky.
blocky kind
When I
of.
when
but-
sit down with me when I Google it, because what I did was 1940 DeSoto, 1939 DeSoto,
Yeah.
1938 DeSoto,
yeah,
and came up with all those pictures.
yeah, but he never had a new car.
Did you put them in scrape?
Not until he had that new Studebaker in Merced.
Was the first new car?
That was the first new car. Oh yeah.
For
Yeah,
us, it
Peter
was the
had that.
Fiat was our first new car.
Oh my gosh. For gosh
I don't know,
sakes.
did you ever have a new car?
No.
And that, we had 6,000 miles on it, didn't
Oh, that's
we?
right. It was sort of semi-new by the time we got it. Yeah. Okay, got it.
You were up in Oakland, right?
Oh, that was the last? Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about what both of you did during the war.
Was there food rationing, stamps?
Oh, yeah. But yet, when we met, he went all the way, this long trip, about 20 miles to Aunt Mabel's, and then back
Oh, all the
to
way
the
back.
races, and then took me home, and then back.
Well, at least we had cars then. It's not like they were walking, you know.
Yeah.
But when you think about, just saying, let's take a drive down to Long Beach,
Yeah.
it's not a small event. you
No.
know. Even now in downtown LA, if you live in Pasadena, you'd think twice before
Yeah.
going to Long Beach.
Yeah. I remember even shoes. You had to have ration stamps to get a pair of shoes.
Who issued them?
Well, I guess it must have been the U.S. government.
Really?
Yeah.
Where'd you pick them up at? Was it from the government's office, from an employer? How'd you get your stamps?
Oh, gosh. That's
Mail
a
them
good
to you?
question.
Got them from work?
It must have been an office somewhere that we went and picked them up. We're not on, are we?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're
Oh,
good.
dear.
That's okay.
Okay. I could, in my junk, I could run into some of those that I saved of those ration stamps.
Well, that would be neat.
Yeah,
Love to-
it's very possible that I'll run into them because I'm such a
Well, we always determined that was an inherited trait, so.
yeah. Yeah.
Between
Oh.
Lucy, John, me, you.
Well, Lucy she very readily throws things away, so maybe but she collects
Right.
stuff, so. Oh, dear.
So during the war, you were in LA, and then Dad joined the service and moved up to Oakland, and then he called.
Yeah.
He said that he was lonely, so he wanted you up there.
Yeah.
So you moved to Oakland, or you moved to Merced?
No.
I thought were you already in Merced in the fertilizer business?
No, he was inducted in Los Angeles. He went out to Marchfield. I don't know if it's still there. And then he was assigned.
Is it March
the
Air
air.
Force Base?
Yeah, March.
Still
Air
there?
Force.
Yeah,
It's still
that's
there.
on
Yeah.
Highway 15.
Yeah. And then he went to Biloxi. I already mentioned that for basic training. And he was shipped several, but they were very disorganized in those days. They'd ship to one place and they'd put them overnight and then way far. I don't know. It just seemed as though they were very disorganized with their, for a while. They were getting used to being at war, I think.
It hadn't happened in so long.
No,
You know.
right. And I stayed at a hotel there. It was the only place I could stay, but I had to find a place to stay, and I got on a bus and went out to the airport because he was he was stationed right there at the Oakland airport, and for this aeronautics and so forth. And I sat waiting for the return bus outside the place with a girl who said, "Oh, my sister has a room she needs to rent." So that's how we rented just a room, and we shared the bathroom and didn't do much in the kitchen, but they were friends forever, these people that we stayed with then. But I just had that room, so everything I owned was in that one room. But then I guess I had to go to the government. I mean, I was available for employment again, and I could have worked for the state, and I didn't think that was good enough because I wanted to be in something to do with defense. So Westinghouse Engineering was out at Emeryville, right outside, and had to ride the bus. And then later we got together on go. I paid a little to go with these workers. The only girl.
Yeah, right. I bet Dad liked that.
Harassed.
No, the only thing they had a vote at one time later on the best legs. I won.
Did Dad know about that?
No, I don't think so. Heavens. Oh, but they were a nice bunch of fellows that I rode with on carpooling, actually, instead of going on the bus. And worked there. I met one girl that I still correspond with. She lives in, she's lost her vision, but she lives in Colorado Springs with her brother.
What was her name?
And Violan Chaffee, Chaffee, 2 E's. And interesting person. And when she tries to write, it's written real big letters, but I don't know if she can even do that now. But, let's see. What next? Oh, well, then he got orders to go for firing. He had for school of to teach them how to really work with guns, gunnery. I don't know what they called it, and so I went back to Los Angeles for a time. Then he said, well, I'm being transferred to Sacramento, and so he wanted me there. So we found a friend told him about this room that was available in a basement. It was pretty horrible, but we lived there. 2115 O Street, I think it was, something like that. It isn't there anymore. It was an old, to go to the side door. I kind of fixed it up with little curtains and stuff, but we had to share the bathroom with this other couple. And a little kitchen thing, there was just something with 2 burners. Anyway, Dad,
How long did you stay there?
until he was to be shipped out. He was to be shipped overseas. And at that time, there was something in Congress about not sending anyone who wasn't totally physically able. So he was one of the older ones then at that time. And they said because his one leg was shorter than the other. That's why he had such a long stretch. He walked.
Mm-hmm.
And they had discovered that his one leg was shorter than the other. And so they said, well, you'll have to be honorably discharged. 2 other fellows who had just some little teeny physical defect, and he was disappointed. He was ready to go. I had just we had said goodbye, and then anyway. So we.
Well, I'm surprised. Well, they
Well-
didn't put him in some, like continuing to work at Cal Ships and stuff like that.
Absolutely. It was, at the time, he thought it was absolutely stupid. And they could have put him over at Sacramento Air Base. We were right there in Sacramento. So we drove home down the coast, visited Sid and Gwen. Sid was he was in Coast Guard there. We visited him at the lighthouse
When was Emery discharged?
in I have his papers
Oh, okay.
in this book. So then he went to work in Los Angeles. We went back home. Engineering, I don't know if that's the name of the place he worked, aircraft engineering. So he was still in defense at the time. But Thanksgiving came along, and the family had always, through the years, gotten together at Uncle Eck's place, Eckford Tyler. And was the husband of his mother's sister who was killed in the auto accident at Catalina. But I guess we didn't cover that.
We haven't been there yet. No.
But anyway, so Thanksgiving he went, and his 3 cousins, Don, Tyler, Harvey Tyler, what was the other? Don, Harvey, and, well, anyway, the 3 Tyler boys and their families were there. Louise and Vane, Jim and Luann, all the kids, big bunch of them. And Don Tyler said he knew of this agency in Merced County for fertilizer, that someone So, and he said that it was liquid fertilizer and very good. And anyway, so he talked Emery into investigating that. In fact, he wanted us to do this so badly that he loaned Emery $1,000 to have this old army truck made into a truck that would handle these big tanks of NH3 liquid fertilizer. He went and while we were in Sacramento, John was conceived. So the service, I really thought I was going to have a baby without Emery around. And so he wanted me to stay. We had already gone to the doctor in Hollywood, Dr. William Benbow Thompson. He only charged Army people or recently retired ones $100 to have a baby. That's all we paid. Hospital, but when he came,
$100 baby.
John was born
1944.
Yeah, 1944. You don't need the exact date, do you? July 5th, 1944. But Emery had already gone. He went on. He wanted me to keep on with this doctor and stay in the house in Los Angeles until John
So you
was
moved back
born.
into the
He had gone and he
duplex,
stayed.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was. Yeah.
Right.
And he went and stayed at the Hotel Idaho in Livingston, and he met Claude Baker, who were friends forever. They were at
I
your
remember them.
wedding.
I remember the
Claude
Bakers, yeah.
Baker and his second wife, because Peggy had died by that time. And, well, where am I?
You stayed in L.A. until John was how old?
He was 2 months old by the time Dad found this $6,000 house that we bought in Merced. And in order to buy it, he sold his half of the duplex to Louise, because we just didn't have anything. We didn't have any money. So that little house, you never saw that little house. You
No,
never-
I was in the
no,
second house in
yeah.
Merced, right?
So
So $6,000 is probably pretty high price for a house.
it was a nice little house. It was only 2 bedrooms and 1 bath, however.
It's just
but-
like ours.
Yeah, yeah. But it was on a corner lot. That's what he wanted, because he was going to use that house, and there was a room just as you entered that to use for his office. And so we had our office there and a sign up and everything on that corner lot. A double garage. And he always
That's
liked
bigger.
yeah. But it was that corner then that we had our little combination business and living. And you have that picture of that house. And then he did very well. At first, when we paid the moving van, we had $800 left in the bank. So then he talked to it was Shell Chemical Corporation that he was working for. And Paul Greening was the agent that he actually worked for. And so Paul Greening loaned us the money to eat until the commission.
Established, basically.
Yeah, until the commissions started coming in on the sales. He had to introduce this idea. The NH3 was put into the irrigation water to fertilize the crops. So he had to be a good salesman to sell these farmers on this.
Doing something different.
Doing something different. And he did very well.
Do you have any of those postcards? Remember the postcard that somebody had where it was fertilized, where it wasn't fertilized, and had NH3?
Oh, gosh, I wonder.
I remember a postcard that from that era, and it was the promo postcard that Shell sent out, and it was a aerial view of a field that had one section had been, you know, like a what do you call it? Somebody, it looked like somebody had fertilized N, and then an H,
Yeah.
and a 3, and this was bright, brilliant green, and the rest of the field was like dull brown.
Oh my gosh.
This was the promo. You remember that?
Wonder, yeah. Oh golly. Well, I may find it out in all those boxes in the garage that I have
thought
to
it
go
was so
through.
neat. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember seeing those.
Yeah.
I think at the it must have been at the ranch,
Yeah.
having some of those floating around
Yeah.
still.
Oh gosh. This is when you were born in 1949.
Mhm.
So, but he did very well, and in 49, I guess it was actually in the latter part of 48, he was talking to the lumber company. They had this lot for sale at on the corner of East 18th Street. I think he had $800 to pay for that lot, and then he hired some carpenters and built that nice house that had, it was 3 bedrooms and 2
So that was the
baths.
first house he built then.
Huh?
He built the second house in Merced.
Well, he had already the first house that was on the corner. He built, and it had the double garage, and then there was still some extra area here, and he built a house and sold it that was beside the double garage. It was a simple house, but that was the first
That was his
one.
first house. Huh?
Yeah, and he also built one for friends who moved to, do you remember Bob and Seal Aldrich?
Remember the name?
Yeah. And he did that down the street and for them. So actually
So by the time it was his third house,
it was
then,
the
by
third
time-
house, yeah. Third
Now, where
house
did he
built.
learn how to build? Just intuition? Did he work for? Dad was
No, he never.
His dad
No,
wasn't.
he never. He was. His dad died when Emery was 8.
So he basically coordinated it and had subs
yeah.
do
Oh
everything.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
so he learned everything he did from the subcontractors.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Designed
So-
it himself.
Oh yeah.
So he drew the drawings and said,
Yeah.
"Here, guys, make it."
Yeah, the only part I had in it, he had lived in a house that had this big long hallway down the whole house, and so he, in the original plan of the 18th Street house, he had entering into a hall that went all the way down, and I said, really, can't we just take out that hall and have the living room and dining room kind of flow together? And so he went for that. So then the hall started after the living room and dining room, because there were 2 big rooms. They were really nice. And
So
Yeah,
and then instead of a
yeah, that was a nice house. It really was.
and that was where the antenna was, right?
Yeah,
Tell us
that
about the
was
antenna.
where yeah. Oh, well,
TV had come out when? Like a couple of years before that or something?
It must have. But a friend who happened to be an attorney had gotten TV, and he was talking about how wonderful TV was. And Emery just got sold on it. He had to have a TV. Louise, oh, well, we visited Louise.
Oh, and then
That's
Ramona
where-
was working for the studios. So,
yeah, but we
yeah.
hadn't really been in close touch with her because her husband was in the service. He was in the regular service.
Mhm.
And so they were different places like Tripoli and Washington, Moses Lake, Washington, and places like that. So we didn't see them much. But what was I going to say?
TV.
Oh, yeah.
You said you had a friend who had it.
We
like
kept
it.
going down to visit in Los Angeles. Every holiday, special holiday, we'd make a trip down and stay with Louise. And she had TV. She was crazy about it. I don't know if Lawrence Welk was on there, but at that time, but she just was, oh golly, she just loved the TV, and it was clear as a bell at that time in Los Angeles, and attempted in Merced, but the studio it just wasn't as good then. But John said,
Where was the closest TV station? Was there a TV station in Merced?
I think the Salinas was as close as there was anything we could get. Fresno, little bit Fresno,
Uh-huh.
but there
Yeah, that's a
wasn't.
little ways.
Yeah.
That's why he had to have an 80-foot tower. Right?
Yeah. Uh-huh. But and then, well, I'm skipping too much.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just
Oh,
Go
free
ahead.
flow. It's okay.
well, just that the TV when we moved to the ranch. Of course, I'm leaving you out. I mean,
That's fine. You're
No.
gonna
all
get,
right.
you're gonna get to her.
Oh, golly. Well, anyway, I was so happy to be expecting a little. I didn't know it was going to be a girl. In those days, nobody knew.
Nobody knew in advance.
It was
eh?
always a surprise. But I almost lost her. Did you know that? At about
Well, we had what? How many months? You had several years between us, so we had like
Yeah, well,
6 years between us. and-
Well, because I had had a couple of miscarriages
Couple.
in between. So, boy, I just wanted this to happen. I started having problems. Actually, I got hit on the head. I don't know if it had anything to do with it. The garage door came down on my head, and it was the next day or two that I started having problems. And the name to the house in those days. And both doctors would come. They had the foot of the bed raised, besides giving me medicines and so forth. I could not get out of the bed. It was weeks that, and Emery got Mrs. Peterson to come and stay with me. I had to use a bedpan. Oh golly, that's going to be recorded.
Other people do recording.
But it won't be edited.
But the foot of the bed had to be raised,
Uh-huh.
and after, it took a long time, weeks, and then I was able to be up and about.
And that was what, when it was about 4 months along or
About
something
4
like that?
months, yeah. It was a crucial time, and so anyway, we made it. You were a little baby. John had
It was
been
only like 6
big.
ounces, what, 6
Yeah,
pounds or something?
yeah, and we're almost 9 pounds, and then the little
He
one
still wasn't as big as Matthew, wasn't
No,
Matthew? Like
no,
12 or
that's
something?
right.
Jeez.
Oh, so anyway, I had my every
So I was born when we were at the new house.
the new
Belt.
house,
The new house.
the
in
new
Merced.
house in 1949. So it was, I don't know, everything went along. You were in kindergarten and there with
Was that with Gail?
with
Remember
Gail
that-
Halverson, yeah.
Did you scan that picture?
Yes.
You did.
And you loved the dancing lessons.
The dancing lessons
The
we both had.
dancing lessons. Oh, she a little angel.
I lost that somewhere along the way, though. I definitely am not coordinated for dancing anymore. It was like, 5-year-old ballet and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember what'd you call that? Crepe or something? That fabric those dresses we
yeah.
had. They were like crepe paper.
Crepe
And,
paper, because it's stretched.
yeah, the
Yeah.
crepe paper dresses we made ourselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
You could rip it, make it into ripples and stuff like that.
yeah, yeah. But then Emery, he went down in weight. It seemed like he was just constantly, he had to handle everything. He had to go to the farmers and collect money, and so many of them hadn't gotten their crops paid for and they couldn't pay. And anyway, he got pretty frustrated by 1954.
It was a fertilizer business.
Yeah, we were doing
He
well.
must have driven hundreds of miles a week.
Yeah, yeah. I never
Lots of
knew when
driving,
he
yeah.
was going to get home for dinner. I'd usually feed the kids, the two of them, and then warm up dinner for him because he was working so hard. He went down to 140 pounds. 140 pounds. And he wanted to have something that was easier to do, so he talked to the boss, and Jim Neller then bought the business from us. Well, then we moved. I remember staying up all night to clean the house with you on a little mattress. You got your good sleep that night because he had taken John with him already to the ranch.
Uh-huh. Well, before we go to the
Yeah.
ranch, let's talk about his auto exploits in Merced. Didn't he race cars
Oh
and stuff?
yes, yeah,
Before we move to the ranch.
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. Okay.
Automobiles were a continued interest, right?
Yeah, he was really interested, even though he had never bought. Well, we did in Merced. We
I
bought
thought you
that
had
the Studebaker. First, it was
dirt
the
track
smaller.
racing or something. What kind of
Oh,
racing was it?
yeah, yeah. It was jalopy.
Jalopies, right.
Jalopies. Yeah. So he took John. John was pretty young, but John would sit there and write down in his crude writing, which I probably can find one of those programs. The timing. He had a minute, or what do you call it?
Stopwatch, right.
Stopwatch. And John sat there. He was barely in school, and with a stopwatch, and he'd write down the times so that some of the people around would say, "Now, what time was that, John?"
And he would have been what, 2 or 3, 4 maybe?
Well, he was
Maybe 5.
He would have been 5.
He would have been 5 years old.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. And
Did we find pictures of the jalopy and some of
I
this stuff?
think I will somewhere, because he bought an old one, and he and one of his workers in the who was it, helped him to get the jalopy ready. So they ran. It was 81.
It was number 81.
81. I mean, our fertilizer was 81% nitrogen. So the Ray Fairbank raced the car. He worked for Dad in the fertilizer business, and because by then we had 3 or 4 trucks, I think, to deliver it. And Ray I had a Christmas card from them the other day. They're fine. We hadn't seen them since, but when we went to that that reunion at the Cathy's Valley School,
Oh, right. Huh?
Ray and his wife were there.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, so they had fun, and of course John ate it up, even at that age. But Emery loved having that little race car.
Did Dad ever get out and drive it?
Oh yeah, because he was on the city council. I forgot that.
So he got it.
Yeah, as soon as we
Merced City Council. Right?
Yeah, Merced City Council. Before you were born, we were in the 18th Street house, and Ken Morley was a New York life insurance agent, And he, really nice fellow, and he had dropped in to see us previously, and told Emery we had the National Service Life Insurance $10,000 policy that was, a few dollars a month. We still had it, and he said, well, now you'll lose that if you don't convert it to 10 sort of 10 pay life or something. So we did, and that, my gosh, it was. Anyway.
So you went from a term policy to a whole life policy.
Yeah, whole life policy. So he liked Emery a lot. So there was to be a vacancy, member of the school board of the whole county. But anyway, he did a good job and made a lot of good friends. And
so that'd be the Mariposa County School Board.
Mariposa County School Board, which included Yosemite National Park. Before you were born, vacancy on the city council. And someone died, and so Emery, Ken Morley was on the city council, and he thought Emery would be a very nice addition to the Merced City Council. So he was appointed.
So he never had to go through the...
Oh, well, yeah, he did run.
He ran later.
Ran later the next time and won. Gosh, the experiences we had, though. They had every fall, I think it was, a group would go representing Merced, go various places. So oh golly, and it was a dress-up thing. I wish I had some pictures of the way I looked then.
Places, yeah.
Oh gosh, there was one in San Francisco, one in San Diego. There was one we stayed at Coronado and went across the ferry.
So this would have been
I'm getting past your birth.
That's okay.
No,
It's okay.
okay. Well, but anyway, we had a lot of experiences at that time, and he was a very good councilman. He really served very well.
Got a lot of things done then.
Yeah, he got a lot done. Yeah. In fact, they were downtown. There was one street where some of the people wanted the palm trees removed, and he fought for that. He thought those palm trees should stay there. And on that street downtown, they had been there for so many years. So anyway,
Did they stay? They probably removed them by now.
They're still there.
Still there.
Yeah. But then, when it came to running, he served the unexpired term of the fellow who passed on, and then 4 more years. Then, at the time that he was to run again, he said, "No, I'm not running again." And that's when he wanted to make this change and do something different. And he heard about this ranch, and he thought that would be great. Did the house and an almond orchard that he had acquired for very little in
I
Livingston.
just heard something.
Yeah.
Was that the door? I think maybe this is the door slamming.
Oh,
I didn't latch it. No, it's just, it's that.
That's
it was
it.
that
It's
door.
okay.
Yeah, it's
If
okay.
it's closed now, it's fine.
The almond orchard.
Yeah.
So we
But
planted
that
the house and the
and
almond
the
orchard.
and for the ranch, and then this gave the people no money, so we had exactly 10,000 in the bank, so we gave that to them, but it was taken off the mortgage. But
So what was the cost of that 3,500 acres then ultimately? What was the retail and the almond orchard and the house?
wow.
What were they asking for the ranch?
Less than 100,000.
For 3,500 acres.
Is that good or bad?
At the time.
Figure out
At the
the
time,
cost.
was it the market value?
That was market value at the
Okay.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it wasn't
So
a
$3 and about $3.50 an acre,
Yeah, something like that.
including the house, the barn.
Yeah. Here was a really neat house. It wasn't on a decent foundation. There were rocks under it, but Emery had somebody come in and put actual foundation, concrete foundation. Not this way, but
Vertical
piers,
posts like
yeah.
piers under it.
too.
Well, at that time, I think I thought it was kind of exciting at that time, but I never wanted to leave that ranch.
Oh,
4 years ago. But I didn't like taking Kathy away from dancing and away from kindergarten because there was no kindergarten there. She was home with me for a whole year.
You know, you taught me how to read and things like that.
Well, but there were horses.
Yeah.
Two.
That made up for everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dad.
Horses and dogs.
Yeah, on the Dad said we have to have 2 horses. So Spooky and Dolly were part of the agreement to buy the ranch. And of course we
And then
didn't.
didn't Wing and Cuddles
No.
come along, or was that later?
No, Wingy, Dad got later, but not much later. But remember how he was? He was pickup sour, is what Dad called him. He
Well,
would
ours are the
not-
same way. He wouldn't
Really? Oh,
open the car. He can, no matter what's going on.
yeah.
You know, you can open the back of the truck, and all the dogs are in it.
Yeah. Okay.
dog was pickup
So the
sour.
dogs
Yeah.
were pickup sour.
Yeah.
You know, they always wanted to
Oh.
ride in the back of the
Yeah,
little.
yeah, but the car, right away, Kathy and Spooky were friends.
I just
But
got
that-
on him bareback, as I recall.
Bareback, yeah.
I don't know how
because-
I got on him, but you
Yeah,
know.
but there somewhere was a saddle.
Yeah.
That later, but she just loved those horses.
What about John? How did he like the ranch?
You know, he didn't eat to
No.
the horses.
Every once in a while, I recall him getting out on Dolly, but
Yeah,
not.
not like you.
Mhm.
But there was the little school down the road. The bus came and picked them up and took them down to the little school, which is still there. They've restored it
Mhm.
to the.
I remember some of the bus drivers' names for some reason.
Oh,
Mr. Zindel, was it?
Yeah, yeah,
Mr. Tondro or something like
yeah.
that.
The Zindels. I don't know if
Yeah.
they still live there, but